they don't realise the value of the education system, because I think unfortunately we don't place enough value on how this education that we get can turn into, okay, a job or money.
You know, I loved school. I literally was such a geek. I loved all my teachers. I spent more time with my teachers than friends. I'm a big advocate for education, but I do feel like school has failed me.
Let's face it, exams are an absolutely ridiculous way to assess somebody's ability. What used to baffle me is that they used to even have exams for art. Like, how can you possibly assess somebody's creativity?
With art, don't you think the best way to test it, be like, go and sell it? Go and create an account on Etsy.
Yep.
The person who sells the most gets an A.
I chose to ignore my gut. Why I did that, I don't know. My gut feeling was telling me, you need to get out of business with this woman. Let's plug my brand, let's build me, and you can have a piece of the pie. And unfortunately, the pie was never even baked. So,
oh my God, I need to know offline who this is.
We don't hate men, we just love uplifting women. that's the party line.
Welcome back to the Money Honey podcast with me, Rosalia Lazzarettilli, your host. And today we're going to be tackling a topic that is quite spicy. And what I mean by that is that sometimes your upbringing or where you've been, whether it's in a council estate or, you know, you've grown up in the middle of Mayfair, will dictate where you are likely to end up in life. And sometimes we let those statistics or those environment or the people that we're surrounded by hold us back from our true potential. So that's going to be a topic that we're tackling today, how we've invited a very successful entrepreneur in the property space who came from a council estate upbringing as a single mum, and actually her future was not destined to look bright at all. Like, it was not really, for in her words, did not look like she had a very bright future. And then not only did she try and break away from her council estate upbringing and all the people around her that perhaps weren't giving her the encouragement and the hopes that she really thought she could have within her, she actually did break away from that. She's going to be sharing with us how she ended up in a brutal, catastrophic business partnership with another woman who absolutely did everything to tear her down and could have ruined her entirely. So unfortunately, that is a topic that we have to address with a really, really kind heart, guys. So if you're watching this, if you're listening to this and you're tuning in, please have the utmost respect for this person who is being vulnerable enough to share her time to potentially stop you from making those mistakes, or to inspire you that you actually can get out of that and still be successful. So she's here with a lot of love and compassion. So we want to show her the same respect back. So without further ado, I am super, super excited to be bringing you we've got Stephanie Beatty here today with us. Hello, Steph. How are you doing today?
I'm really well, Rosalie. Thank you so much for having me. I'm dead excited.
Oh, I am so happy to have you here. And I'm so happy that your studio looks like my studio. So we look like we're in the same room with each other, which I love. These vibes, these pink, orange, yellow vibes I'm loving today. So Steph, why don't you do us an intro as to who you are and what you're here to talk to us about today?
Well, thank you. I am Steph Beatty. I have had a very, very successful career in education. I'm a qualified teacher. I was in the education sector for about 13 years, and for about a decade of that, I was an English teacher. And everyone used to say, "Oh, you're a teacher, secondary." I'd be like, "Yeah." And I think, well, I couldn't have done primary. I think I'd have died. I couldn't work with smaller children. I just take my hats off to the primary teachers. So I was in a leadership position as well. I was head of whole school literacy, and about almost 3 years ago, I handed in my notice. I sacked the boss, which at the time was really exciting, but then it got really scary. I've had 2 failed businesses, which is, part and parcel of being an entrepreneur. And I spend most of my days in my pink office with my pretty neon lights, listening to 80s music, just trying to get out there, buy more properties, help as many people as I can get into property. And when I'm not in this office, I am basically either walking my dogs with my partner Phil, or I'm out having a few drinks doing a pub quiz, or I'm camping in the camper van. Love camping.
What a phenomenal intro, Steph. So, we are going to be talking about in this episode how to fire your boss and become your own boss, how to break out from the cycle of, growing up in perhaps an environment that didn't serve your entrepreneurial spirit. Perhaps that area or those surroundings didn't give you the entrepreneurial support that you wanted. And then we're also going to be speaking about your book, Women in Property Volume 1. I can't wait to speak more about all these phenomenal women, and so much more. So if you're only tuning in now to The Money Honey, if you're coming across it for the first time, or you're a repeat listener, thank you for coming back. But if you're new, remember to hit the subscribe button and to stay tuned. These are only half an hour episodes, whether you're commuting to work or you need this little pump during your lunch break. This is what we're here for. So, Steph, let's begin from the beginning. Talk to us about your upbringing. Where did you come from?
So I came from a place on the Wirral. So a lot of people think I'm Scouse, but the Scousers would hate for someone from the Wirral to be called Scouse. So I'm from the Wirral, which is just over the River Mersey from Liverpool. And I come from a place called Tranmere in the district of Birkenhead. So if there's any Tranmere Rovers fans, I'm with you. Although I am a red at heart, me fellas are blue. So you can imagine what Derby Day is like in our house. So I'm from a place called Birkenhead. And I grew up in a single parent family. My dad's not on the scene. I'm happy. Should I share this publicly? I don't think I ever have. My dad's a drug addict. And as soon as my mum had me, found out what he was doing, she basically broke up with him and she brought me up all on her own at a very, very young age. She had me at 19. And for the first 5 years of my life, me and my mum lived with my nan and granddad, and I do attribute them to my upbringing as well. So I'm from this place called Birkenhead. Now, what is really interesting about Birkenhead, and I didn't really realise this until I got into property, you could literally be in a district in Birkenhead where there is a property worth a couple of million, and then you walk 3, 4, 5 minutes down the road and you are in basically places that are very, very poverty stricken. 1 in 3 children on the Wirral, 1 in 3 children in Birkenhead, according to the most recent statistics, live in poverty or in single parent families where they're really struggling. It has these demographics that unfortunately dictate parts of Birkenhead, I might say, not all of it, but it has a demographic that dictates that people who grow up in that area may not necessarily even make it to sixth form, may not make it to university. And unfortunately, what that does is that creates an environment where children, young people, feel like they can't succeed. Well, what's the point? When I was growing up on the road I grew up in, the houses got knocked down in the end because they were unfit for human habitation. And we moved out when I was 15. They were vile houses. Unfortunately, our house was nice and cozy, but we didn't have double glazing. We didn't have central heating. It was a tiny house anyway, so it was easy to heat. But these houses were dilapidated. They didn't even have party walls in the loft space. We couldn't get into the loft space. And when the houses started being emptied because people were moving on, and the council would move all the drug addicts out of the street and house them somewhere else, unfortunately that bred crime as well. So a lot of the kids, they didn't really have anything better to do than to break into these houses, set them on fire, and of course that's a safety hazard, as we know, if there's no party walls. So that was the kind of place I lived in. And I was brought up really, really well. I was probably one of the lucky ones in that I had a brilliant mum who worked her backside off for me, and I had a stable life with my nan and granddad, and I was brainwashed to get educated, to get qualifications. It was drummed into me from a very, very early age. I was always academic. But yeah, we moved out of that area in 2003, and the houses got knocked down and rebuilt again. And I don't believe the area is as bad as it was back then in sort of pre 2002, 2003. But it's still a place where children specifically in certain areas, children's life chances are affected by their environment. And that's one of the reasons I think I became a teacher, was to improve the life chances of children through education. I still strongly believe in that. And then, yeah, I went into education, graduated twice, which was really, really not heard of. It was not something that people like me did from that area. But again, if I didn't have the family that I had, who brainwashed me into thinking I could do and be anything I wanted, I might have had a very, very different life. The young people that I grew up with, unfortunately, some of them have gone on to, they've had what I would call a normal job, but, not one of them, and, university isn't the be all and end all, but not one of them has gone into further education. Some of them ended up in prison. Some of them ended up alcoholics. Some of them ended up drug addicts. So I think that I'm lucky, but I also, in the sense that I had a good mum, but also in the sense that I was able to recognize this isn't the kind of life I want to live in. And no one even, what was interesting is nobody from school ever knew my background, because I was this straight A student. I was the one who was singing and dancing on stage, reading in the assemblies, and, nobody would have ever guessed that I was from that area where there were police turning up every week, for disputes in the street. It was brilliant. It was like Brookside. I don't know if anyone remembers that episodes of Brookside. It's a bit old now, but me and my mum would be like, oh my God, what's going on now? We'd have the kettle on, we'd have the hobnobs out, the curtains would be twitching. We'd be like, oh, who's fighting with who? It's brilliant.
Yeah, you've got your own like reality TV show right outside your window. But Steph, you went from living in a house that could be burnt down any second from anybody in your neighborhood
Yeah.
to becoming Steph, the property teacher. How did you do that?
Oh, good
For
question.
people listening, yeah, like Steph, like people, sorry, just like there might be parents listening to this, or there might be individuals like still growing up
Mm.
through school and they're thinking, this is not, I want more uh, than this in life. What would you say to them? What is that journey from getting out of that to what you're doing today?
I'd say education is important. And I know I'm in a lot of networks and entrepreneurial circles, property circles, where people say, oh, we don't teach children financial skills, financial literacy skills, entrepreneurship, and so on. I think there might be a place for that in the curriculum, but I actually think it'd have to be very carefully implemented. But I think what these children don't realise is that education, I used to say to my classes, every time you put pen to paper, you are engaging in a potential money-making activity. You do not know where this path is going to take you. You don't know, by the end of that English lesson, yes, you might have learned about Macbeth and how Lady Macbeth was a psycho bitch and that kind of thing. You might have learned all about that. But what you don't realise is that you're not just learning Shakespeare, you are learning to analyse things, you're learning to evaluate things, you're learning to read between the lines. You can do that in life, you can do that in business. They don't realise the value of the education system, because I think, unfortunately, we don't place enough value on how this education that we get can turn into, okay, a job or money. And that's the difference. And, kids don't know that they are going to school to leave to get a job or start a business, and they don't attribute it to money.
I literally just did a post because I contribute a lot to schools and to the next generation. I help a lot with business and entrepreneurship, education, money and property in schools. I go in as a guest speaker, but that's not enough. They're just inviting me as a guest speaker. It's not part of the curriculum. And I literally just did a post today, which was schools don't teach you how to make money. They teach you how to get a job. But I don't think now, on reflection of my own post, I don't think they even teach you how to get a job. I love your perspective that you're saying Lady Macbeth and everything. You're reading between the lines, but is that obvious enough? Like, we're going to school reading about Macbeth, but in the workplace, when we're dealing with negotiations or conflict, or we're in the boardroom and we need to speak up, I don't think having read Shakespeare helps me address the office and the office environment. So what do you think as a teacher? um by the way, I loved school. I literally was such a geek. I loved all my teachers. I spent more time with my teachers than friends. So I'm a big advocate for education. I loved the library. I loved doing, well at school, but I do feel like school has failed me. School has definitely let me down when it comes to building my career and when it comes to trying to break out of that 9 to 5 cycle and becoming an entrepreneur. My good grades are not going to save me. My good grades didn't get me a pay rise. I've been past a pay rise or a good job over somebody else that just has more experience but has never been to uni before. So you might get the job and you might get an invitation to come in and be, to get the job with a good grade, but actually it's not what makes you successful and takes you to the next step. So, in your opinion, as a teacher and now entrepreneur, what do you think could be done in schools to accelerate that learning and prepare us for real life?
It's an interesting question, and I think I do get asked this a lot, having been a teacher for so long, and as I'm very similar to you, I'll go into schools, you do your little keynote, you get them interested, we do like Dragon's Den style stuff with them, and it's great. But yeah, what can we do to ensure that they don't just leave with these qualifications to go and get a job? It's so subjective. I feel like you've just opened this can of worms now. So brace yourself.
This is a can of worms that I'm happy to discuss because it is something I'm proactively working on. And you said about the Dragon's Den thing. I just did a workshop with a primary school actually on that. But
Cool.
yeah, it is something that now as an entrepreneur, I'm like, wait a minute, I was such a good student. Why am I not? I feel
Yeah.
like I've been robbed of all those years that I invested and I took those exams so seriously, Steph. Like, kids get like students, they get IBS or they get anxiety or they get mental health issues because we're putting so much strain on your exams. And then you come out and you're like, oh, what do you mean you need experience? Well, I've got all these, like my experience is reading literature and like
Yeah.
how can we do that?
It's interesting. I think when it comes to schools, particularly secondary schools, unfortunately, we are turning these children into like little exam factories. That's what the schools become. They're becoming exam factories. I got to a point where I was like, I'm not teaching English literature. And that is my subject. I've had children in my class leave the lesson still talking about what they've learned. They've come in and gone, oh, we're doing Shakespeare. Oh, we're doing poetry, and they've left the lesson ignited. And that, it gives me goosebumps even thinking back to that, because I loved classroom teaching. But it doesn't give them necessarily the skills that you've said. How does it get them a pay rise? How does it get them into negotiation? It doesn't give them those things. We've turned them into these exam factories. And let's face it, exams are an absolutely ridiculous way to assess somebody's ability. Do you know what always used to baffle me, as a sort of ADHD side note here? I'm just thinking out loud. What used to baffle me is that they used to even have exams for art. Like, how can you possibly
No.
assess somebody's creativity? Why are we? It was like when they used to write poetry and we had to grade it. How can you put a grade on somebody's
Oh,
imagination? It's bizarre.
exactly. And
It's
someone's
bonkers.
like emotions, like with
Yeah.
art, don't you think the best way to test it be like, go and sell it? They
Yes.
should have taught us how to sell your art. Be like, go and create
Ellen?
an account on Etsy.
Yep.
The person who sells the most gets an A.
Yeah.
Like you get an
You
A
win.
if you sell. Like you should be selling your art because everything after school is sales. Like if you are in the real world, you're gonna be selling for the rest of your life. You're gonna be selling books.
Yeah.
Everyone, just a little plug in.
Yeah.
Women in property. Everyone, we're going to be talking about the phenomenal women in a minute. But you're going to sell either yourself or a product or a service. And by selling yourself, legit, yeah?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not talking sell yourself, sell your body, sell your soul. I'm talking you're going to have to sell your personal brand. When you're applying for a job, you have to sell yourself. When you're
Yeah.
applying to uni, you have to sell yourself because you're doing a personal statement. So you're going to be selling yourself. So tell us then, Steph, what skills as an entrepreneur, as you're a teacher, teach us what are the entrepreneurial skills that we need that weren't taught in school that we could do with
I
in
think
real life.
I think language is everything, and I actually did teach this in school, to be fair. You don't just teach sort of Shakespeare, literature, poetry, plays, and what have you. We teach language. And I used to say to the kids, right, we're doing persuasive language today. Oh, what do we need this for? And like, because when your parents tell you to turn the Xbox off at 7 o'clock at night and you want to carry on for another hour, I shouldn't advocate for that. Here's how you can persuade them. Here's when you walk into, I don't know, a job interview, this is what you can say. I think language is absolutely everything. Learning to articulate, learning to be solutions focused as well. Like, I think, again, being in education, I've seen a lot of children, unfortunately, it happens. We can't be resilient all the time, but some of them have lacked a bit of resilience. Some of them have, I really can't be asked doing this and so on. You've got to have a bit of grit, a bit of resilience, grow thick skin. Don't take everything personally. And I'm like, right, well, there's the problem, but this is the solution. And, the solutions focus, the solutions mindset, it's not always going to be the solution that you want, but it's a solution nonetheless. Deal with it, move on. That's it. Just keep jumping over those hurdles. What other entrepreneurship skills? I don't know if it's
I love that, Steph, on that one.
yeah.
Sorry, whilst you're thinking of some more, my favorite lesson that I will never forget from school that is stuck in my mind, that is the only lesson I ever remember actually being valuable for my life, was an English based lesson, which in our English class, it was around GCSEs. No, was it? No, it was GCSEs.
Yeah.
And we had to make up a product, and then that product we had to use persuasive language to do a radio show. We had to then write about it, we had to then market it. That was the best ever, the only lesson that simulated real life. I got the best grade I ever got in my English. Like, that was one of my best projects ever. It created a lot of buzz in the room. We had to like get up and act it out. We had to walk out the classroom and come back in. Like, it was fantastic. And in fact, I've replicated that just from memory and created my own workshop that I do with kids now in schools, because that stuck with me so vividly. So yeah, you're right. Like, English is probably the closest. If we could do English and maths, but have a secondary module, or like another subject matter that it combined English and maths, in terms of like being commercial, being commercially minded, but also having communications and language. And on the language note that you said, this is why at school, I became a linguist. I studied German, Spanish, Italian, and English. Those are my core subjects. And I dropped geography, I dropped history, because I was like, I am not going to talk about the Battle of 1066 to anybody outside of work or outside of school.
Yeah.
And I learned that quite quickly. And I was like, if I can talk to anyone, then I should be okay. Like, I could get my way around. So yeah, that's what I wanted to just back up on the skills that you've any more just quick fire skills that you think we need.
I don't know if it's more of a skill or an attribute, but being confident, even when you don't feel it, just fake confidence. And then but the thing is, when
practice confidence, just practice it.
Practice it. When you think about the biochemistry of our brains, if we think we're small and fragile, we will behave small and fragile. If we think we're strong and confident, we will become strong and confident. Practice it, and practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes progress. And I would always, one of the skills as well, I think, is taking feedback from people, and not taking it personally. Being able to obviously give feedback, effective, constructive feedback to people is a skill, but actually being able to take it and think, okay, this is not a personal attack on me, unless it is. It's not a personal attack on me. This is actually something that can help me, who can make me get better. And somebody actually told me that a bit of feedback I had from a networking event, of all things, a couple of years ago. I got up and I did a talk about a terrible property that just literally was the bane of my existence at the time. But solutions focused, we got over it. It was a terrible deal, and we carried on with it. And one guy told me that I was a little bit too confident. He said, "You get up and talk about this terrible deal." And, I'm all for the feedback. I'm all for the constructive. And I thought, right, okay, I can't take this personally. Maybe I've done something wrong. But then when you've got about 50 other people in the room saying that was great, that's when I think, well, I'm just going to let that fly over my head. I'm not going to go to bed worrying about that. Again, I don't necessarily know if that's more of a skill or more of a mindset. I think building you're in charge of your own continual professional development. You're in charge of your own CPD when you're an entrepreneur, and part of that is building that mindset, building that resilience, and getting over those hurdles. That was a hurdle for me, but I decided not to go to bed worrying about that feedback.
Done. Yeah, I just think you're too confident, you're too shy, you're too bubbly, you're too quiet, you're too, like, too much for who? Like, who are you,
Yeah,
Goldilocks? Like, I'm
can't
not
win.
supposed to be like too. Yeah, exactly. You do you, babe. Some people will be for you, some people won't. But speaking of that, you know, supporting and empowering each other. You know, this is the Money Honey show, right? This is the show that empowers the female voice in the space of property, finance, and construction, which tend to be male
Yeah.
dominated. So let's just quickly touch on that topic about how you worked with another woman
Mm.
and you thought you were entering, you know, your woman like sisterhood era. You know, I'm sure you had high. What happened? What happened with this woman? Because you said she was tearing you down, and this nearly ruined you.
Yeah, and I think everybody around me saw it. So I basically was in business with this other person who, at the time, you know, a lot of people see this person as someone who uplifts everybody, is super helpful, and only wants to help and is not interested in money. But I got this very, very close to this other woman that I actually could see right through it in the end. I chose to ignore my gut. Why I did that, I don't know. My gut feeling was telling me, you know, you need to get out of business with this woman. But yeah, very, very slowly she was chipping away at me. And I think looking back and based on what other people have said, they've said she was very threatened by you know, which is ridiculous. Like, I don't want anyone to feel threatened by me. But when I look back and I think, well, yeah, and she manipulated me, you know, unfortunately I quit. Well, not unfortunately, it's worked out for the best. But yeah, I did quit my job. I left a career in teaching on her word. And that's really scary. That's really scary to do. Like, who does that? When I think back, I'm like, that is not me. That's not something I really should have done at the time. It's all worked out for the best now. But yeah, she slowly chipped away. She promised the earth, you know, we'll go into business, and we did go into business together. We're gonna get, you know, we're gonna build this network and we're gonna build this business. It's gonna be amazing. We're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. And nothing ever prevailed. I didn't really get paid for anything. And all I did was plug this person's brand constantly, plugged, to the point where I was like, but what about me and my brand? And it was almost like very much like, well, no, let's plug my brand, let's build me, and you can have a piece of the pie. And unfortunately, the pie was never even baked. So,
Oh
and
my God. I
very
need to know offline who this
crazy.
is. We don't want to name and shame,
No,
but
definitely not.
we do want to warn our sisters around us
Yeah,
of who we need to be careful of if this is truly like a scam or if it's like really detrimental to your health and well-being. And it's just such a shame because I've got a few collabs with other women and now I'm truly blessed to have found some good eggs out there. Um, I have had some near misses and I have
yeah.
dodged some bullets, but these girls that I collaborate with, I truly am literally so
Oh,
thankful to my lucky
good.
stars every single day because, you know, there are con artists out there
Oh, yeah.
and there are imposters out there. You know, when everyone's like, oh, I suffer imposter syndrome, and I say this too, I'm taking the mick out of my own voice. I'm like, oh, imposter, I'm such an imposter. And then I'm like, hold on a minute. I like they're the imposter. I'm like, there actually are real imposters out there. And because I think I'm an imposter, that just proves that I'm not because I'm so self-conscious and so careful about like I don't want to like, you know, promise something I can't deliver or I don't want to do something that I don't think I'm good at. And, you know, I'm really careful about that.
That's
Um,
integrity, though, Rosalie. That's integrity. And that's what a lot of people, unfortunately, and I'm all about the sisterhood. And, you know, you said you've got a couple of collaborations with other women and they're amazing. And I do too. And you've got to find your tribe. Like, you've got to find your tribe. But unfortunately, in that pursuit of finding your tribe that match the integrity that you have, we do come across these absolute bitches,
Oh,
you know?
bitches.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Say what it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It is heartbreaking. And I have had male and female clients and collab partners who genuinely I'd invited some to my wedding. I even said, like, we've been spending so much time together. They didn't actually come, and we were still friends at the time. But then when I got back from my wedding, other things happened and they pulled the rug from underneath me. I was like, oh my God, what absolute snakes.
Yeah.
Like, and then you find out through like social media, like behind like your back, and you're like, I can see this, you know, like I can actually see what you're doing.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't even want to go into the stories, but if any of you out there listening are like screaming in the background with us, like, yeah, I know what this feels like.
Yeah.
Please let us know. Please don't leave us hanging. Like, let us know in the comments or on social media. Join the conversation. Please do share your stories and how you overcame them. This is about positivity and addressing things with a solution mind. So let us know like what you did. Yeah, just for the motivation. But okay, well, let's move on. Because time is flying, let's move on to this wonderful book, Women in Property. I am going through it. It is a page turner, and there's so many people in here that I recognize. So you mentioned 12 ordinary women. Can you give us a whistle stop tour for those people who don't have your book about what this book is designed? Why did you write it? What's it about? What does it include?
So, Women in Property is an anthology where we've brought 12 women together, and every woman has written their story in their own chapter. And the aims of the book, especially when Neil actually approached me about the book, he said, "Oh, I see you all over social media. You're the first person I thought of." I said, "Okay, well, you're a guy with a publishing company, Barnthorne Publishing, and they are very successful in their book publishing company, and this is the first of the kind." I said, "But who's writing your introductions? Because you're a guy." And he's like, "Well, do you want to do it?" I was like, "Do I want to do it? I'll find the women." I was like, "I've got like literally a line of women who are going to want to be in this book," and everyone's just come together and told the story. It's interesting though, Rosalie, what you said about imposter syndrome, because a lot of the women in this book were like, "Oh, who wants to hear my story?" And
I know.
oh my god, what you don't realize, ladies, is that when somebody reads your chapter, they are going to be thinking, "I've been through that. Oh my God, it's not all sunshine and roses. Property is absolutely really difficult sometimes. No, I'm not going to make £1 million and be financially free in a week." It's the raw honesty. And what's brilliant about it, and all of these women, is that they all thought they didn't have a story to tell. They all thought that no one wanted to listen to them. But when you've read the chapter, some of them will give you goosebumps, some of them will make you cry, some of them will make you laugh. And people want to read them, and that's what we found. It's well, let's see who wants to read these
You
stories.
know what? Well, when this book came out, this is my ego talking. I was like, why am I not in it? Excuse me. Like, how have I not been? How have I missed this book when I'm the money honey? Screaming and shouting about women in finance and property. Where has Steph been all my life? Because you only came onto my radar when this book came out. I was like, why don't I know her? How come she doesn't know me? I mean, where's she been? So I was like proper like on an ego rampage on Instagram trying to find out who you were. And then I saw, and I want to read out and shout out these phenomenal women. We'll tag them on social media when we post this. But obviously you, number one, the chapter starts with you. Then we've got Alice Garnett, Sarah Harvey, we've got Lindsay Kane, Christy Keenan. Is that how you say it?
Keenahan, yeah.
Keenan,
Yeah.
Karen Livock, Shara Ludlow, Louise Murphy, Stacey Owens, Jessica Rehal, Lauren Sunter, and Natasha Ware.
Yeah.
All the phenomenal women that you would have probably seen around at networking events or social media, they're all in here. And they all share. I haven't read every single one yet, but yeah, so many lovely pictures, so many amazing stories, and they are raw, they're real, they are candid, they're genuine, they are the kind of people that will save the reputation of women in property, because they are, well, from what we know of them today and in the book, they are legit, and they're not faking it, and they're not trying to sell you a get rich quick scheme. So yeah, guys, where can we get the book, Steph?
You can head over to Barnthorne Publishing. You can buy it direct from the website, or you can just get it on Amazon. And we don't actually have an Audible version of it yet, but we definitely will be thinking about recording it. However, I do want to say, if you check your Instagram messages, I actually want you to be in the next book as well. So so I just sent it. Yeah, I want you to be in one of the books. We'd love to have you on board. So let's have a chat off air. And
oh my god, yes,
please. And do you know what's great about this book? I mean, it's not even a book. I have to say that there's no money in this. It's not a profit thing.
I've written a book. I know what you mean.
When there's no money in books. So I'm donating all of my royalties from. I mean, we haven't had haven't had any from the first book, because it's just not that kind of book that makes very much at all, because there is so much that goes into the printing and the publishing of it. But any royalties that I do make, I'm going to be donating to the National Literacy Trust, and a couple
Oh,
of
love
other
it.
book charities when they come in. And the idea is that we, so if there's any women listening who in property have got a story to tell, get in touch. Like, we want you in the book. It doesn't cost anybody anything. It just costs them their time. They're probably going to need to buy a couple of copies of the book. You might want to give it to friends and family or resell it or what have you. But yeah, this is a passion project for me. It's not something any of us get paid to do. It's just basically, it's all about the sisterhood for me. So let's get the women out there. Let's showcase what we can
Yes.
do. It's not, we don't hate men. We just love uplifting women. that's the party
Exactly. And
line,
that's the heart of the Money Honey as
Yeah.
well. This podcast was created because we have to raise ourselves up, otherwise no one else is going to do it for us.
No.
And we're not trying to beat the men or shaft them out the way. We're trying to join them.
Yeah.
We're trying to be equal. We're not trying to surpass.
No.
We're trying to be part of it. So that's what this episode's all about. So thank you for being a truly phenomenal money honey. Like, you truly embody the meaning, and that's what we are all here. So that's like the saying of the Money Honey is that you're all money honeys. You're out there making money. You're making waves, you're making, you're disrupting the industry, you're giving back to your industry, whether it's through a book or through appearing on podcasts and using your voice, or it's through networking event and just being that, face in the industry that we need to see. So for everybody who has been with us throughout this episode, thank you for your participation. You too can be a part of that ripple effect, which we call positive pollination. If you want to spread that money honey vibe to anybody that you think might benefit from this episode, that you might be someone in your team, it might be yourself that you might want to save this and listen to it again, or it might be someone, a friend of yours that could benefit from hearing Steph's story. Get your hands on the book. It is an absolute, even if you buy it, put it on the shelf just for the contribution of supporting these women and the message and the charity that Steph is supporting. That is an act of positive pollination. And that's, I know it's kind of, a bit daunting to show up sometimes on a podcast. Like, I've actually asked someone from your list of authors if they want to come on the show, and they said no, and that's okay. Yeah. So someone said no, and it's like, okay, they don't want to be on a video camera and they don't want to be on the mic. They might have been more comfortable writing their story on text. So that's why, honeys, if you're listening, it's not, the only way to show up is not just on camera, right? You can show up by, like I said, contributing to a book or sharing this on social media. So thank you for your contribution. Thank you, Steph. I'm going to tag you in all the socials. Thank you so much for being on the show. We really appreciated having you.
Thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to listen to this back and probably cringe.
No, you've been
I didn't say this, I didn't say that.
No, you've been phenomenal. But please stay on so that we can have a quick chat offline. But sending you big love today on a Friday. Thank you for being here with me this morning. See you, everyone, on the next episode for more fantastic, uplifting, phenomenal women that I will be interviewing.